The world we live in is surrounded by technology. I mean, it's everywhere. Cell phones, computers, television, Wi-Fi are just a few huge quantities of technology around us. But how did the radio become what it is today?
Marconi is credited by most to be the inventor of the radio, as he was the first person to successfully send a radio transmission in 1896. Then in 1901, Marconi attempted and ultimately achieved the first transatlantic experimental radio communication. Now you are probably wondering how the radio was able to send these signals. Well, radios had both transmitters and receivers installed in them, obviously so they were capable of sending and receiving the signals. Sometime in the mid-1920s, John Ambrose Fleming developed amplifying vacuum tubes, which gave the radio the capability of using AM radio frequencies.
With the AM frequency, radios were now able to transmit audio broadcasting, and slowly but surely were becoming what we call a radio. The first ever radio broadcast was successfully conducted by a Dutch company, Nederlandse Radio Industry, on November 6, 1919.
The company used both transmitters and receivers, which they manufactured themselves, and from 1919 to 1924, they would broadcast their show 4 nights a week. The first ever licensed commercial broadcasting station in the U.S. is KDKA in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, which was created in October of 1920.
Radios in their early years were used for much more entertainment purposes, such as listening to music or keeping up with the news. It wasn't until the mid-1930s when the radio began to be used for even more entertainment purposes, such as radio dramas. Vacuum tube equipment was used to revolutionize the radio, but on April 7, 1917, all radio use, commercial and amateur, was brought to a stop when World War I started. United States radio stations were ordered by the president to either shut down or be taken over by the government. It became illegal for a private U.S. citizen to even have an operational radio transmitter or receiver. Radio communication played a crucial role for all combatants during the war. Before industrialization, Army transportation still largely depended on mules and horses. The military importance of the radio was immediately apparent. No comms, no bombs was coined in World War I to show the importance of radio and communicating between comrades. During the 40s, 50s, and 60s, the radio started to be used for more of an entertainment purposes. Bands like the Beatles, Rolling Stones, Elvis, Bob Dylan, James Brown, the Beach Boys, as well as Led Zeppelin, started to become more famous and broadcast throughout the radio.
1970 in radio saw the debut of nationally syndicated music countdown show. NPR started, and AM Top 40 begins the decade with a lock on the ratings. By the middle of the decade, most of these major stations were declining. AM stations even tried going stereo but failed. Big FMs would rule by the decade's end. In the 1980s, almost half the radio stations changed hands. Radio remained a popular source of news and entertainment. A survey done in the 1980s revealed that 99% of American households owned radios. American households had 5.5 radios, including car radios. FM radio stations became the most popular in the 1980s. The more liberal National Public Radio, NPR, was the single most successful national radio network in the 1980s, reaching more Americans than any other network.
During the 90s, the popularity in the FM radio stations continued, and it still grew throughout the 2000s.
The radio is used today for several things. One way the radio is used today is wireless networking and broadcasting. Several thousand of radio stations are broadcasted each hour to a nation and worldwide audience. Another name for this is a commercial radio. Commercial radio can be broken up by music, drama, comedies, news, variety shows, and different other forms of entertainment. Our generation specifically uses the radio mainly for music and sports talk.
So how much is the radio really used today? We have a few people who told us their opinions on how they use the radio and if they even use the radio at all.
Listen to radio when I'm driving into work and driving home from work and during work. Listen to the radio a lot. I listen to KYW in my truck going back and forth from work to home just for, what's going on. And I also listen to modern rock when I'm at work on equipment, operating equipment, so cover my ears from the loud noise.
So when I in the car, I listen to the radio, but then sometimes I put on the aux cord. Yeah. Okay. So I listen to the radio in the car every morning and after school. It helps me digest from school. Yeah.
Go.
My name is Anthony Polanco.
And so Anthony, do you happen to listen to the radio ever?
No, I usually don't listen to the radio.
Why not?
I have a aux cord in my car, so I use different things like Apple Music. After Apple Music, I can use what's the other one? SoundCloud. I always use SoundCloud, different stuff like that, just online sites. And I just don't like using radio because sometimes the connection is pretty bad.
Do you think in today's generation the radio is dying out?
Yes, 100%. Most people just use an aux cord, to be honest with you.
All right, thank you very much.
So today, do we really use the radio? No. Today we use media such as iPods, iPhones, or computers. We use Pandora, Spotify, Apple Music, or even just downloading the music onto our devices. Yes, the radio is still used in vehicles, but it is not used as much in today's society.